No extradition.
There's only one decision.
No extradition.
There's only one decision.
There's Sabby coming out.
There's
Wolfie!
only one decision.
I'll recognize that voice.
There's
I miss
only
you.
one decision.
Come back to TVA. Where the
There's
heck
only
are
one
you?
Decision.
Can't even tell you how many times we've talked about you. All in a good way. We miss you.
Free. Julian Assange. Free.
Wish you were here.
Free. Julian Assange. Free. Free.
That's a pretty good turnout for an Assange event in
Julian
DC.
Assange.
I'm not at all disappointed.
Julian
Awesome.
Assange. Free. Free. What do we want? What do we want it? What do we want? What do we want it? What do we want? 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 I want to hear it. What do we want? What do we want? They need to say inside. What do we want? When do we need it?
All right, everybody. That was amazing. I'm not going to lie, I got a little emotional. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Misty Winston. I'm an organizer and activist with Action for Assange. We've been around for, I don't know, too long. When we started, we thought maybe we'll be doing this for 6 months, and here we are like 4 years later. So we have an amazing list of speakers, so I'm not going to waste any of your time rambling, which is what I'm known for. I'm going to not do that, though. So leading us off really needs no introduction. Her name is Dr. Jill Stein. She is, yes, give it up for Dr. Jill Stein. She is an American physician and activist. She was the Green Party's nominee for President of the United States in 2012 and 2016, and I voted for her both times. And she is also a member of the amazing group Doctors for Assange, so she is representing them as well today. So once again, please give it up and welcome Dr. Jill Stein.
Thank you so much for everything you do. Everyone here is a hero. We are all Julian Assange. We all need Julian Assange, and we all need to stand in for him as best as we can until Julian Assange is free. I especially want to thank the members of the press, because the real press is here today, not the old press, who are the ones that should be here, but are busy keeping us down in so many ways. So as we know, what's going on here is not just a threat to the life of Julian Assange, it's really a threat to the life of our democracy. The more you look at this case, the more you become traumatized, I must say, by just looking at what is going on. This is an assault not only on freedom of the press, it makes a complete mockery of our judicial system. It is an attack on human rights. It's absolutely unacceptable. What we are watching here really is a microcosm of the crisis of our democracy. So we have no choice except to keep fighting back. And I have to mention, I'm here today representing Doctors for Assange, which is a group of healthcare providers, doctors, psychiatrists, and psychologists who've made the point that the treatment of Julian Assange is basically one of psychological torture, and it must not be tolerated. So, what we really need right now is watchdog journalism. We've had enough of lapdog journalism, which is what we've got today. If we don't have watchdog journalism, how do we ever end the endless wars in which we have spent $21 trillion since 9/11? How much safer are we? How much more democratic and free are we? Not at all. We need to be spending that money on human needs here and around the world, and on a global Green New Deal, and on peace and justice, not on endless war. That is why they are silencing Julian Assange. We need the money that's going into endless war to solve our climate crisis, which is becoming more catastrophic by the day, with a third of Pakistan underwater, with the ice sheets in the Antarctic said to lose a major ice sheet, the so-called Doomsday Thwaites Glacier, in the Antarctic, which is threatening with 2 feet of sea level rise, which may begin to accelerate any moment now. We can be fixing this crisis, but we cannot fix this crisis while we have a press that's basically in bed with the banks and the billionaires and the fossil fuel giants and the war profiteers. So this is about seizing the power that we have, and I just want to remind people, we do have the power. We do have the power. As Alice Walker said, the biggest way people give up power is by not knowing we have it to start with. A poll was just done by Gallup, and they found that overwhelmingly the major concern of people in this country is for jobs. It's for an end to inflation. It's for being able to afford the cost of living. It's for health care as a human right. These are the things that people want. The number of people who thought that the business with Russia is the leading issue amounted to a measly 1%. Yet that is what we hear the lapdog media screaming about all the time. So don't take that propaganda at face value. Have the courage of our convictions. Let's keep fighting. We are going to free Julian Assange and protect our democracy for all of us. Thank you all so much for being here.
Wow, let's hear it for Jill Stein. Woo! How you guys doing? My name's Amber King. I'm with Roar Media, flew out from the beautiful Pacific Northwest to join you all here today. And I would like to introduce our next speaker. Please give it up for Chip Gibbons. He is the Policy Director of Defending Rights and Dissent, where he advises lawmakers on the Espionage Act and the First Amendment implications of pending legislation. As a journalist, Chip has analyzed U.S. prosecutions of our truth tellers, highlighting the violations against the First Amendment and human rights. Please give it up for Chip.
Thank you very much. It's a great honor to be here. And as already was mentioned, I'm with Defending Rights and Dissent, an organization that for 6 decades has defended your right to know and your freedom to act. It is so great to see so many of you here today. This is an extremely heartening crowd. It is inspiring, but I want to take a minute at the beginning to remind us of some of the people who could not be here today, like Edward Snowden, who is in exile because he exposed how our government lied on or spied on us in violation of their own laws and lied about it. Like Daniel Hale, who right now is in a communications management unit for exposing the realities of drone warfare. Communication management units are draconian prisons reserved for terrorists. The drone program is terrorism, not whistleblowing. And of course, the reason we're all here today, Julian Assange, who is right now in Belmarsh, one of the most draconian prisons in the world. Once again, generally reserved for terrorism. Very interesting. The person who exposed the terrorism is the one there. For over 105 years, the Espionage Act has cast a shadow over our society. It may sound like a law that is aimed at spies and saboteurs, but it is a law that has censored, silenced, and chilled opposition to U.S. foreign policy, whistleblowing, and journalism. It was passed during World War I, and not a single German spy was prosecuted under it. Instead, thousands of Americans like Eugene Debs and Big Bill Haywood, who did not think we should be in a bloody and pointless European war that may have been extremely profitable to the war profiteers and the arm manufacturers and the captains of industry, but came at a heavy cost that was paid by the working class. Those people were in jail. Their prosecution so enraged the public. We had a movement like never before for freedom of speech that redefined free speech itself and turned the First Amendment for more than just words on a piece of paper. Unfortunately, in spite of those fantastic victories, 100 years later, we still have unfinished business with the Espionage Act. And I also want to be clear that there is clearly a through line between putting Eugene Debs in jail for saying, and this was the quote that landed him in jail, "If war be right, let the people decide," and persecuting Julian Assange, a journalist who believes that if wars can be started on lies, then peace can be brought by truth. Starting with Daniel Ellsberg, the Espionage Act took on a new purpose, silencing and prosecuting whistleblowers. And the national security state, from as soon as the Pentagon Papers were published, began salivating at the idea of putting away journalists under the Espionage Act. But for decades, that was considered a bridge too far, even by CIA directors and other people who were all willing to use it against whistleblowers. That is until Julian Assange became the first person ever indicted under the Espionage Act for the publishing of truthful information. And we want to make sure he's the last person indicted for publishing truthful information, and that he never stands trial in this country, because if they bring Julian here, it will not just be Assange on trial in the Eastern District, it will be our First Amendment in the docket as well. So we have to make sure the U.S. government never gets its hands on Julian, and that we amend the Espionage Act so that it can no longer be used to incarcerate, jail, and intimidate those of us who oppose the policies of war and empire. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chip. Everybody give it up for Chip Gibbons. All right. Joining us next, we have James Bogard. James is the author of 10 books. He's on the USA Today Board of Contributors and has written for the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. He wrote an article in 2019 in the USA Today calling for awarding Julian Assange with the Presidential Medal of Freedom instead of federal indictment. So everybody please welcome James Bogard.
Thanks. Hey, I want to start by thanking Misty Winston for doing a great job of organizing this protest. She is really, really good. So there's an old saying that if government makes exposing a crime, then you're being ruled by criminals. Except for Joe Biden. And except for Merrick Garland here. Maybe except for Christopher Wray, but I'm not sure. So I was trying to make sure I got those caveats added to my dossier. Yep. So did everybody here get the official informant bingo game bingo card? So we keep track of the informants? No. Okay. I'll draw the curtain on that. 4 years ago, I did a piece for USA Today that said that instead of an indictment, Julian Assange should get a Presidential Medal of Freedom. Now, I don't trust presidents, and I don't trust presidents that give medals of freedom to people like Robert McNamara, but I'll make an exception in Julian's case. Julian said if wars can be started by lies, they can be stopped by truth. He's facing 17 counts of the Espionage Act for exposing war crimes that were committed by U.S. forces in Afghanistan and Iraq. The Christian Science Monitor said that the reaction of Congress was to Julian Assange's message was to shoot the messenger. But the Taliban did not buy into the cover-up. And as we saw last year, the American troops were unpopular in Afghanistan, the puppet government collapsed. But Congress had no reason not to know Julian Assange and WikiLeaks showed them 12 years ago that the war was not going to be won, but they kept going. So 3 years ago, back when Britain arrested Julian Assange for the U.S. government, Senator Joe Manchin said, Julian Assange is our property, and now we can get the facts and truth from him. Unfortunately, Manchin has no recommendations on how we can get the facts and the truth from the federal government right now. Okay, so Biden has ramped up U.S. bombings in Somalia. Who exactly are we killing and why? It's a secret. Question is, U.S. government is still financing Syrian terrorist groups that are slaughtering Syrian civilians. What are the details? It's a secret. Why is the U.S. still bankrolling Saudi atrocities in Yemen? It's a secret. And then there's the biggest and most dangerous secret on the horizon right now, U.S. intervention in the Russia-Ukraine war. We have no idea how far that the U.S. has gone and what kind of actions the U.S. might have taken. It's possible their Pentagon CIA officials who are trying to who are warning, but those warnings are being ignored, and it might be that we don't find out about it until it's too late. So the Justice Department stresses that Julian exposed classified information. People in D.C. talk about classified information like it's a holy relic that cannot be exposed without damning the nation. How much classified info do the feds have? They make trillions of pages of it per year. That's part of the reason we have little or no idea what the U.S. government foreign policy is right now, because there's an iron curtain that has fallen about this. And this helps explain why there's so little trust in Washington now. Americans today are more likely to believe in witches, ghosts, and astrology than to trust the federal government. We need more hell raisers like Julian Assange to save democracy from the deep state, from big government, and from both political parties. Hopefully we can get him out there, get him out of prison as soon as possible, and thanks for coming to this event.
Thank you, Mr. Bobart. All right. Next, we know him as a political analyst and a progressive radio talk show host. Garland Nixon has served on the board of the ACLU National Board and appeared on multiple TV and radio programs, and my favorite one to watch on Rockfin. Please welcome Garland Nixon.
Hello, hello. And a special hello to my favorite person who's here, Medea Benjamin. Love Medea Benjamin. Yay, let's hear from Medea. So, you know, I didn't really have a plan, but on the way over here, a friend of mine, I was talking to a friend of mine on the phone, and I was getting, you know, why are you doing that? You know, the empire's too powerful, you're not going to get anywhere, blah, blah, blah. And I thought about this very short story. It's a good story. I made it up. So there's a guy at the dock. He's standing on the dock, and he's pushing against this aircraft carrier. And somebody walks up to him, and they're like, what are you doing that for? You're wasting your time. You will never move that aircraft carrier. And he says, well, it's a hobby. It's just what I do. I'm a pusher of aircraft carriers. I do it because I enjoy doing it. Whether it moves or not, I'm going to keep doing it. Here's my point, because a special hello also to the people, those who are in the national security, enforcement agencies who are here. You know who you are. I just want to say hi and thanks for helping build up the crowd a little bit. But my point is this. When it comes to this, don't get frustrated. That's what we have to be when it comes to activism. I want to be the person to say to everyone, you don't know if it's going to work, if it's not going to work. Don't be the angry activist. Enjoy your activism. Do it because it's who you are and it's what you do. As a black person, I always think back like to W.E.B. Du Bois, to people in 1900 and 1910 who had no chance that in their lifetime they would achieve what they wanted. But they did it because it was who they are. So to those in the national security state who are here trying to figure a way that they can turn down the volume on this thing, it's not going to happen. We're going to continue to do this. We're going to stand for Julian Assange because it's who we are, it's what we do, and we're not going to stop, and we're going to enjoy the fight. Thank you.
Everybody give it up for Garland Nixon. Thank you, Garland. Okay. I'm personally pretty pumped about being able to introduce our next speaker. She, I think, came from the womb and was immediately in the streets. She is a minister, a Black Panther. She was instrumental to the Poor People's Campaign and is well known for her work as a grassroots community activist for welfare, housing, and healthcare rights. Everybody, please give it up for the legend herself, Reverend Annie Chambers.
Hey, everybody. Hello. I'm so glad to be here with you today and to speak on what we used to call in the Panthers a true soldier. Julius Assange was a true soldier. He's a soldier. See, everybody put on a uniform ain't a soldier. But he's told the truth. And he's been prosecuted for the truth. He's been prosecuted. And during this when I, was about to speak, know I was coming, I had to pray. My prayers, because I've been praying for him ever since they incarcerated him. Along with a lot of other us, he's incarcerated unjustly. But look where we are. We're in America, a country that was stolen on lies, a country where people with class, as I was explaining to some of my colleagues and one of my sons and my husband coming over here, when they talk of what they call class. Class is money. That's all it is. So we in a country that thrives on greed and the viciousness. And when he told the truth about us going other countries, oppressing other people, stealing wealth from other people in other countries, he had to be stopped. That's what they think they can do. But I prayed on this, as I said, and I asked God to give me some clarity. As a minister and a woman of God, because I haven't always been. I haven't always been. But he gives me good clarity. And I picked up the Bible and I seen Paul and Silas, and I read about them. They refused to bear down. They refused to bear down. Julius refused to bear down. He's not bearing down. I know that he's suffering, and I know that he's being tortured, and he's being abused. But we must understand there's still a higher power. I have belief in this power. I know that this power works because it brought me to, and it's brought a lot of other, my comrades, too. And we have to understand that while we have to fight this battle, and I say it all the time, whenever I speak into my family, I may not see it in my lifetime. I'm 81 years old. I may not see it in my lifetime, but y'all know that I made a mark. I'm going to be fighting. That's what I tell them. But you remember the Roman Empire? Biggest empire in the world. But they could conquer the world. But it was not done. It was not so. That's what America think they are. The greed here in America is so greedy, they think that they can conquer the world, that they can control the whole world. Well, I'm here to tell you that it is not true, America. The Holy Spirit has showed me. America, do you see how we are divided? Even, you got this group and that group. And I'm talking about the political parties. I just want to say the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, the everybody's party, but we don't have togetherness party. We don't have a togetherness. And American people, we gotta oppress somebody else. Why they coming to our country? I said, ain't yours, and why the hell you come here? Why you come here? It wasn't yours either. Well, they come here getting my job. It wasn't your job in the first place. You understand? So we have to be able to fight against oppression in America and fight for change. That is my whole goal, is to fight for change and oppression in America. But I want Julius to know, I may not never get to meet him or see him, but I want him to know, if ever there's a message getting to him, that I pray for him every night, because that's my faith. That's my faith. That's my belief. I know that he's going to come out victorious. He's going to win. All we got to do is to keep him out of the hellhole worse than he's in, and that's America. Keep Julius out of America. When we do that, well, we got to fight here in America and say no oppression, no for none of us. But we got to fight for Julius Assange. And I do. I want him to know, and his family, and all of y'all to know that every night I pray. Every day I wake up saying, Lord, please bless and keep him. We know that he's suffering. Because who stays in isolation that don't suffer? I got some Black Panther brothers and sisters can tell you about how they stayed in isolation and the abuse that they did to us while we was in prison. So just imagine that 10 times over for him. But keep him out of America. I said to you today, not today, not tomorrow, not ever. Not ever. He should be able, they should be able to put his feet on this hellhole of a soil called America. God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Reverend Annie. That was amazing. We are so with you. Next, I'd like to introduce Spike Cohen, Libertarian candidate for VP in 2020. He has been outspoken voice for freeing Julian Assange and defending independent journalism. Spike, please make your way.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. I'd also like to give a quick shout out to the corporate media who didn't send a single outlet to cover the fact that there are hundreds of people from across the country of every walk of life across the entire political spectrum, all here calling for the same thing, to free Julian Assange. And it would make sense that they're not here, because if it was up to them, we wouldn't have known about the human rights abuses and outright murder of civilians that happened in Iraq and in Afghanistan. We wouldn't have known about the torture of detainees who've never seen trial in Guantanamo Bay. We wouldn't have known about Hillary Clinton and the DNC rigging the 2016 primary to make sure she won. We wouldn't have known about all of the things that we only know because Julian Assange and WikiLeaks released it to us. So it makes perfect sense that the corporate media and the government are in lockstep with each other to make sure that this man is being tried for espionage. Let's be clear, what Julian Assange did is called, and hear me out, journalism. What he did was what all of the people who aren't bothered to be here right now should be doing, receiving information and giving it to the public, not putting a corporate spin on it, not editorializing it to death, not censoring it because they don't think it fits their narrative, but giving it to you so you can decide for yourself. Julian Assange and WikiLeaks and all of the free independent media that are here, they are the only thing separating you from having absolutely no idea what this government and what this corporate media is doing. They're the only thing that are separating it. Now, the one thing that we keep being told is, well, maybe it was journalism, but if you think about it, the information that Julian released was a threat and was helping these foreign dictatorships, our enemies, these dictatorships. Well, let's take a look at what these dictatorships are doing. Brutally repressing people in their countries, especially the most marginalized in their countries, destabilizing, bombing, invading their neighbors, and getting away with it with no accountability because they suppressed that information from being shown to their public. Does any of that sound familiar? It sounds like exactly what's happening here. The fact is, Julian wasn't trying to help dictatorships. He was trying to stop the United States from becoming one. And that's why they want him in jail. And that is why it is crucial that we continue to fight to set Julian free. As our numbers grow, as our voices grow louder, we will continue to fight to free Julian Assange until it happens. And if these monsters won't do it, then we'll vote to replace them with people who will. What do we want? When do we want it? You're damn right.
Everybody give it up for Spike Cohen! Okay, coming up next, we have one of my favorite independent journalists, Dan Cohen. He's a journalist with Mint Press News and a filmmaker. And his latest film is Another Vision, which is a film about the inside of Haiti's uprising. So everybody, please give it up for Dan Cohen.
Thank you, Misty. I want to give a huge round of applause to all the organizers who put this incredible event together and everybody who came out to stand for Assange today. I want to know, raise your hand if you are a reporter for the New York Times or the Washington Post or the Guardian. Are there any of you out there? No, there's not a single, I don't see any hands. One guy's raising his hand, but I think that's just so he can take a picture. But no, there are, what does that say? That if you are a journalist, you're a reporter, and you are not here defending freedom of speech, defending your ability to speak the truth, it means you're not a journalist. You are a propagandist. That's why none of them are here. And it comes down to regular people, other independent journalists who are not owned by BlackRock, by the mega corporations and financial institutions that dominate our lives. So it comes to us. We are the real resistance in this country. Exactly. We need to make our voices heard here in the belly of the beast. I mean, think about the importance of Julian Assange, the importance of WikiLeaks in this moment as we are on the precipice of, as Joe Biden said, Armageddon. And what did Julian Assange say? What did Julian Assange say about war? That every war begins with a lie, and so truth can bring peace. And so let's imagine if we had Cablegate, the massive trove of diplomatic cables that were leaked by WikiLeaks. If we had that right now, what would we know about, let's say, the assassination of Daria Dugina, the U.S. role in that? The U.S. says, oh, we don't know anything about that. We don't know anything about that. But you can imagine what's being said in classified documents. What would we know? What would those documents reveal about the bombing of the Crimea Bridge overnight? That the U.S. doesn't know anything about it. Just it's, you know, the SBU, the Ukrainian intelligence services, are essentially an extension of the CIA, but we don't know anything about it. What would we learn about the assassination of Haitian President Jovenel Moïse last year? That the U.S. You know, we don't know anything about that either. Even though they sealed the indictment, essentially what a former DEA chief called telegraphing CIA involvement in the assassination. So the reason they're punishing Julian Assange is not because of what he did as one person. It's because he represents the truth that he and WikiLeaks bring to the people, represents a threat to the most violent and dangerous empire in the history of the world. And I'm inspired to see so many people here today who have come from all around the country to make their voices heard, to refuse to submit, and to fight back. So thank you, everyone, for coming out.
Thank you. Beautiful speech. Okay, very excited. Coming up next, we have my dear friend Eliza Blue. Eliza is a human trafficking survivor and an advocate who works directly with survivors of human trafficking. She also collaborates with international organizations and governments, and she is always fabulous. Please, everybody, give it up for Eliza Blue.
Hi, everyone. My name is Eliza. I'm a survivor advocate for those affected by human trafficking. First and foremost, thank you so much to everybody that's made this beautiful event possible. Thank you. Thank you to everyone that has attended today. No thank you to the corporate press because they're not here. You're probably thinking to yourself, what on earth is a female survivor of human trafficking doing here and not over at the Women's March? See, that would, I guess to a logical mind, that would seem like it would make more sense. But the truth is, without a free press, we will have no one to cover women's issues. We will have no one to cover survivors' issues. That's why I'm here today. That's why I'm here today to advocate for the freedom of Julian Assange. See, when I made the decision to advocate for others' freedom, I didn't want to stop with survivors of human trafficking, or even just my own freedom. I want to advocate for all those who need to be free. Julian Assange is one of those people. But if we don't advocate for Julian Assange now, it will inevitably affect all of our freedom, especially press freedom. When it comes to survivors of human trafficking, we need an opportunity to speak out to a free press. We need whistleblower protection, and we definitely need free speech. We just do. Survivors need it. That's why I'm here today. Yeah. I couldn't look my fellow survivors in the face, the survivors that are going to walk after me. I couldn't look them in the face and say I did everything that I could do to serve them, and know that I did not advocate for Julian Assange when it mattered. This is the beginning, but I'm telling you, it's coming for all of us. It's coming for all of us. We have to fight for our freedom. We have to fight for our right to speak freely. Thank God I'm an American. Oh, woo! It's all we got left. It's all we got left. Are you ready to fight for it? I am. I have a message for the ruling class, the global elites, the CIA, the FBI. Be a hero, quit your job, become a whistleblower. Yeah. But if you do not, I'm hyped today. If you do not, you can tell I get hyped when I walk around. If you do not, if it's a choice between free speech and the United States government, trust and know, one's got to go. If one has to go, it ain't going to be free speech. I can bet you on that. I can bet you on that one. Yeah. We aren't going to lose our free speech. God. I think I get so passionate about freedom because I know what it's like to lose it. And once you lose it and get it back, you don't ever want to lose it again. Yeah. It's really hard to get it back. I was thinking yesterday, and I wasn't going to add this in originally, but I know there's a lot of folks here that have been fighting this fight for a very long time. There are a lot of people that have been fighting for Assange for a very long time. Anyone that's been keeping up with what's been going on, you know, there's been things going on, you know, worldwide today, which have been really incredible to watch. And I had a message for you. You know, as a survivor advocate, the days get long. You grow weary, you get tired, you get worn out. It's stressful. It's like you feel like no one's listening. You feel like there's nothing you can do. You keep going, you keep going, you keep going. Every day you wake up, you're like, what the hell? I gotta keep fighting for this. I see the Assange people is the same way. Thank you. Thank you. And then on top of all of it, you'll have like Karen 973065 on Twitter tell you, oh, Julian Assange wasn't, you know, he's not a journalist. Yeah, right. Keep going. Please keep going. Because not only are you fighting for Assange, you're fighting for yourself, you're fighting for me, and you're fighting for survivors of human trafficking, some of our world's most vulnerable who need to have a free press and free speech. Thank you so much for letting me come today. Thank you so much for letting me speak. And thank you all for being here so much.
Thank you. Wow, thank you. Let's give it up for Eliza Blue, everybody. All right, next up we have Dave DeCamp. He is a news editor of antiwar.com and a freelance journalist based in Brooklyn, New York, focusing on U.S. foreign policy and war. Please welcome Dave DeCamp.
Thank you. First, I just want to thank all the organizers for putting this together. It's great to see so many people out here for Assange, and so much work has to go into this. And so, when I'm talking to you today, we appear to be on the brink of nuclear war. And I don't like to be an alarmist, but as Dan Cohen mentioned, the President of the United States did just say that the other day. We're facing nuclear Armageddon, the highest chance since the Cuban Missile Crisis. We have to ask ourselves, how did we get here? How did we get to this point and forget the lessons of the Cold War? Well, a few things happened, including giving up on the peace dividend after the collapse of the Soviet Union, using the unipolar moment to pick on and destroy smaller countries, responding to 9/11 by killing millions of people that had nothing to do with it. They made an enemy out of Russia when there was absolutely no reason to do so. And that's not me, that's George Kennan who said that. Now we're seeing a similar situation unfold with China, making war over Taiwan more likely. Instead of dismantling their nuclear weapons, they tore up arms control treaties and created a plan to spend $1.5 trillion to modernize the nuclear triad. And they have to justify that somehow. So how could we let this happen? And the reason why is because we don't have more people like Julian Assange. And for exposing the truth and the deep-seated corruption that led us to this point, he's been vilified and tortured and kept away from his family. And why did they do that? Again, if there were more WikiLeaks and more people like Assange, we could find out the truth of what's going on, as Dan Cohen mentioned, with the war in Ukraine. There's strong evidence that the Biden administration wanted to prolong this war, that they sent Boris Johnson over there in April to kill a peace deal.
In our time, we need our government, the U.S. empire, to free Julian Assange. And that's what we should all be screaming from the rooftops. But instead, there's no mainstream journalists here. So it's up to us to get the word out to everybody. Thank you. Free Assange.
I keep thinking, when I was coming over here, I was thinking that WikiLeaks was and is an antidote for this kind of imperialist psychosis that thinks that we will forget that the millions of people killed in Vietnam or all these wars, that the people who have been tortured, that the people who are been starved like they're being starved right now in Afghanistan because we've stolen their money, that they think that all of these things will disappear. And I think it's a type of psychosis, and WikiLeaks was and is an antidote for that. So the work of Julian Assange and WikiLeaks lives on, and will live on no matter what the 1%'s instinct for cruelty and injustice is. I keep thinking that the work of WikiLeaks is kind of like an extension of these great scholarly works that I've been privileged to read, like How Europe Underdeveloped Africa by Walter Rodney, because what WikiLeaks shows through its investigations is how it's still being underdeveloped by the imperialist order, by the U.S. empire, and so we can take this information to fight back. And that's the final thing I want to say, is that Mike Pompeo, a whole group of cannibal imperialists, they aren't afraid and angry because WikiLeaks makes them look bad. They're afraid and angry because WikiLeaks gives us information to fight back. It gives people the information they need to fight back. In Haiti, in the United States, in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Syria. And so that's why we're here today, to let the imperialists and all their minions and corporate media know that the people will keep fighting back and that facts don't die. Free Julian Assange. All power to the people.
Free Assange, everybody. Thank you so much. Let's give it up for Esther Ibram. Woo! Abraham. I knew that. Oh, all right.
Free Assange, we shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved,
Just like a tree.
just like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. Lucy's based here in DC, so I hope you all see her often. All right, next up, we have Sabrina Salvati. She is an activist, former educator, and host of the Sabby Sabs podcast, and co-host of the Revolutionary Blackout Network. Please give a warm welcome for Sabrina Salvati.
Oh dear. Listen here. Greetings. I'm a little short here, but here we go. First and foremost, big shout out to Misty for putting this together. All the Assange activists as well. It's not every day I get to be in DC, but so excited to see all you guys. When I studied journalism in undergrad, my professors told me that journalism was about reporting the facts. What they did not tell me was that there are certain agencies that do not want some facts or truths reported. Sometimes that decision lies in the hands of an editor, a publisher, a platform, or the United States government. Julian Assange is currently imprisoned for reporting the facts, for revealing harsh truths about U.S. war crimes. He's being tortured for doing his job. Some government officials, like John Bolton, have called Julian a criminal. I disagree. Journalism should not be a crime. But I would ask John Bolton, where is that same outrage for the real criminals? Where is that same outrage for the clients of Jeffrey Epstein? Where is that same outrage for the Wall Street bankers that stole people's homes during the housing crisis? Those are the real criminals, and they walk among us freely. Independent journalists like Julian are critical and necessary because media outlets such as CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC spread lies every day to the American people. They regurgitate the same narrative from the State Department, the narrative that the U.S. government has decided is acceptable. If commentators like Anderson Cooper told the truth, the real truth, would he still be employed at CNN? If you're wondering why you should care about what's happening to Julian, if you value free speech or free press, then you should be very concerned about his ordeal. Over the past year, I've watched independent journalists and commentators struggle with censorship on various platforms. I've seen them have their work deleted, sometimes work that was published years ago. I've seen journalists demonetized and deplatformed, some of whom I know personally, and I know they do good work. I've seen Wikipedia pages smearing anti-war voices. And speaking of war, if you discuss Russia and Ukraine differently than mainstream media, you will also be censored or deplatformed. The same goes for Israel and Palestine, Syria, and Yemen. Other page here. Censorship did not start with Julian Assange, and he is not alone. We must also mention voices like Daniel Hale and Mumia Jamal. But we must also ask our representatives in DC, where do they stand on this issue? In particular, the progressive members in Congress, with the exception of Ilhan Omar, where does the squad stand on Julian Assange and the issue of free speech? Why are they silent on this issue? If they're not willing to stand up for free speech, then they will vote accordingly. And we may not have independent media, the same media that gave them a platform when CNN would not. The same media that got them elected. So this time, it's Julian Assange. Next time, it could be someone else if we don't protect free speech. Next time, it could be you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabrina. Give it up for Sabby Sabs. Amazing independent journalist. Please go support her work. Okay, coming up next, we have Scott Ritter, who is a former U.S. Marine Corps intelligence officer, served in the Soviet Union as an inspector implementing the INF treaty, and served as a chief weapons inspector with the UN in Iraq. Currently writes on issues pertaining to international security, military affairs, Russia, and the Middle East, as well as arms control and non-proliferation. Everybody give it up for Scott Ritter.
Thank you very much. It's an honor and privilege to be out here today to speak with you. It's also an honor and privilege to stand here underneath the flag of the United States of America. I took an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States. It's an oath I took seriously, and I know there's many in the audience today who have taken the same oath, and I know there's some people out here who are watching us who have taken the same oath. Thank you for your service. But the important thing about that oath is what it stands for. It doesn't stand for, I will defend the President of the United States no matter what. It stands for, I will defend the Constitution. I will uphold and defend the Constitution, and the First Amendment of that Constitution is freedom of speech. In June of 1971, lawyers from this building argued a case before the United States Supreme Court. That case was the United States versus the New York Times. The Supreme Court came back with a 6-3 opinion in favor of free speech. What they said at the time is that the First Amendment doesn't allow the government to suppress the press, but the press to suppress the government. That the purpose of free speech is so that the people can hold their government accountable for the crimes and the misdeeds they do, that the government can never hide behind a shroud of secrecy and cite secrecy as a defense against, or as a way of suppressing free speech. It was a very important decision. One that if journalists today were a half of what they were 50 years ago, they'd be here in overwhelming numbers supporting this very cause. 1 month after the Supreme Court passed or voted 6-3 for this opinion, a child was born. His name was Julian Assange. 1971. Here we are today talking about free speech, and we're talking about Julian Assange in the same breath. Because, ladies and gentlemen, he is the face of free speech. He is that which defines the struggle we should all be united in. Standing up for our right to say what we want, when we want, to whom we want. Now, unfortunately, Julian Assange may be extradited to our country. I hope it doesn't come to that. But if he does, I demand that the U.S. courts pay attention
to the words written in the opinion of United States versus the New York Times, where the Supreme Court chided the lower courts and said, you should never have even heard oral arguments on this. That you can never allow the government to use secrecy as an excuse to suppress free speech. What has Julian Assange given us? Julian Assange has done nothing more than that which we demand of everybody who claims to be a journalist. That is, to find the facts, report the facts, and turn them over to the people so they can judge the facts and hold people accountable for the facts. He's exposed war crimes. He's exposed the lies of the U.S. government. And again, I didn't take an oath to serve the U.S. government. I took an oath to defend the Constitution, embarrass the U.S. government when it needs to be embarrassed. Hold our elected representatives accountable for what they do in our name. It's a shame, but I'm proud of it, that a foreigner has to serve as a better example of defending American values than many American journalists. So we gather here under this flag. This flag is supposed to stand for something. I wore this flag proudly on my shoulder when I served in the Marine Corps. But this flag stands for the defense of truth. And I'm telling you right now, Department of Justice, if you dare hold Julian accountable for a violation of the law that did not occur, take this flag down and hoist the Jolly Roger. Because piracy in American democracy has taken place. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. All right, well, our next speaker needs no introduction. She is the most colorful person at every protest. She has been the strongest anti-war advocate that I have known in my lifetime, and the only reason I'm here today is because my father was able to make it home from Vietnam. So please give it up for Medea Benjamin.
Well, it's a little bit cold out here, but it warms my heart to see all of you, because I've been to so many Julian Assange protests, and in a lot of them, there's just like 20 of us, right? So it's really great. And I don't know, raise your hand if you saw any of the footage that came out from London today. Wasn't that amazing? Amazing. There were so many people. It was so beautiful. So you organizers are extraordinary, because you're bringing together people who normally don't come together. I see people I don't know, and that's really nice. And I also feel like all of these speakers have been so fabulous and brought in so many of the different issues that bring us out here today. And one issue is how many times we are lied to by our own government, over and over and over again. We're lied to for 20 damn years every day about the war in Afghanistan and how victory was around the corner. We were lied to every day for 20 years about the war in Iraq, what the U.S. was doing there, how well we were received by the Iraqis when the statue of Saddam Hussein came down. We were lied to about the invasion of Libya. We were lied to about the U.S. role in Syria. We were lied to about the U.S. role in the coup in Ukraine and what the U.S. is doing right now to try to keep that war going. We are constantly lied to by our government. And that is why truth is so essential to us. The truth. What does that say? I don't even know. Julian Assange, right? That is why the work of WikiLeaks and Julian Assange was so critical when we were trying to learn what the hell it was that our government was doing. And one of the only ways we could find out was reading what WikiLeaks gave to us. Those truths. so that we could do our job, like Tig was trying to do right there, which is to get up and protest, get up and shout, get up and say no to the warmongers who run our country, whether they're Democrats or Republicans. They're both war parties, and we sure are seeing it today. Yeah. So I just want to say thank you to the organizers, thank you for everyone here, and thank you to Julian Assange, and that we will keep working and keep fighting and keep building until Julian Assange is here with us as a free man. Thank you.
Everybody give it up for Medea Benjamin! I love somebody who calls out a warmonger to their face, and she's known for that, so I love her. Okay, coming up next is somebody I hold dear in my heart, Randy Credico. Randy is a comedian, a radio host. He's the former director of the William Moses Kunstler Fund for Racial Justice. As an activist, he almost single-handedly saw the harsh Rockefeller drug laws dismantled and brought national attention to Tooele, Texas, the site of one of the worst miscarriages of justice in history. And thanks to his radio show, which just celebrated its 5-year anniversary in April, Live on the Fly, Assange Countdown to Freedom, the entire world has been given a comprehensive record on what is hailed as the political trial of the century. He's dedicated 175 shows in 6 years to Julian Assange. He's absolutely tireless. He's also, there's a billboard truck right there. Randy has been in the streets of DC for the past 2 months, every single day, with the billboard trucks. He is my friend. He is amazing. He is Randy Credico.
Thank you. How about a big hand of applause for Misty and her crew for this wonderful gathering today. It really is nice. This is the biggest one. Chuck and I were here last August out front, and there were only 3 people there. We said, August is a good time to do this, 3 days in a row. So we started the billboard truck August 8th. We've been doing it for 60 days. There are 2 of them out there now. Once in a while you can turn to the left and you will see these billboard trucks. And what I've learned, by the way, I am Randy and I'm an alcoholic. Oh, that's the wrong meeting. That's later on. At 6 o'clock meeting, right. Over there, I'll be there. All right. DuPont Plaza. All right, we've been here for the last 2 months, and we're going to be going on for at least another month and a half, courtesy of Ben Cohen, who has just helped finance us going forward. And what I learned, I was just talking to Chris Hedges, is that we've been on the streets, we've been talking to people for the last 2 months, is that this is going to be a very tough road to hoe going forward, because there's a lot of apathy and a lot of antipathy towards Julian Assange here in D.C. So it's going to be difficult. We're up against a mammoth force out there. It is going to, we got to continue being out there every single day. This is so important. People got to know how important this is. We have to be unified. We have to act as one and inform other people. We got to inform other people. Bill Kunstler said May 10th, 1970, after the slaughter at Kent State, he said the biggest problem, the biggest mistake that the German people made was they just didn't understand the threat of the boots until the boots were at the front door. So we've got to know that this right here, this case here of Julian Assange, if he goes, what goes next? The Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights goes. What goes next? What's left of this democracy? This fragile ersatz democracy, it's gone after that. And then the boots will be at our doors. So we have to act together. I don't care, as Bill Kunstler said back then, if you're a weatherman or with the ACLU, we must all act together, focus, and continue fighting, organizing, get on the streets, because this is the fight of our life. We can do it. We can do it. It has been done before. Toussaint Louverture did it. Garibaldi with 1,000 men conquered or liberated Sicily and then Naples. We can do this if we stay together, organize, and act as one. So There are a lot of speakers. There's another 85 speakers. So the final speaker is slated at 7:30 tomorrow night. So don't miss it. No, we got some great speakers left. I want to thank you once again, the local people came down from New York for all of the work. Let's just keep moving forward. Thank you.
Let's give it up for Randy Credico, everybody. All right, get ready with that podium here. Okay, our next speaker needs also no introduction. He is the co-founder of your favorite ice cream, Ben and Terry, president of the People Power Initiative, which helps run the National Assange Defense Campaign in partnership with the Courage Foundation. Everybody, let's give it a warm two-scoop welcome.
Thank you. Someone sits there. Well, there is ice over there. You know, when I met with Julian at the Ecuadorian embassy, what struck me was his intelligence, his compassion, and his belief in the power of truth as an antidote to being awash in a world of lies. As Julian said, if wars can be started by lies, peace can be started by truth. But now, according to the U.S. government, publishing the truth has become a crime. As the UN Raconteur on Torture has said, a murderous system is being created before our very eyes. They are literally killing the messenger. 3 years in solitary, and he hasn't been convicted of anything that he's been indicted for. Compare that with how they treat insurrectionists. Here's the thing. There's no democracy without freedom of the press, because it's only a free press that can hold government accountable. And there's no freedom of the press without a free Assange. Obama understood that and refused to indict him. Trump reversed that decision, and now Biden is following in Trump's footsteps. As long as Assange is under indictment for publishing the truth, freedom of the press is just some meaningless, highfalutin words. The truths he published revealed that the U.S. military lies to the people, the press, and the government. The U.S. government permits our military to commit war crimes, and the CIA lies to Congress. None of this can be denied because Assange published the actual source documents. Here's what Biden and the DOJ are really saying by prosecuting Assange. They say, if the U.S. government wants to lie, by God, we're going to lie. If we want to cover things up, we're going to cover them up. If we want to hide the truth, we're going to hide the truth. And we're not going to let some little pipsqueak publisher get in our way. We will smear his name, we will prosecute him, we will torture him. Let this be a lesson to any journalist, anywhere in the world, who dares to publish truths that we don't want people to know, regardless of whether you're a U.S. citizen or not. We will smite you down. We will use the full power and influence of the United States throughout the world to make your life a living hell. That's the truth. And here's another lie. Speaking on the occasion of World Press Freedom Day, President Biden proclaimed at least 360 people worldwide are currently imprisoned for their work in journalism. We all stand in solidarity with these journalists. For as Thomas Jefferson wrote in 1786, our liberty depends on the freedom of the press and that cannot be limited without being lost. Biden failed to mention that one of those imprisoned journalists is Julian Assange. Let's get out there, drop the charges, free Julian.
Everybody give it up for Ben Cohen. Hey, since he's right there, we already talked about the billboard truck with Randy, who's done an amazing job. James is in the truck right there. James is a small business owner here in D.C. He runs D.C. billboard, mobile billboards. Give it up for James. We work with him every time we come to D.C., and he is fantastic. So shout out to James. And he's been stuck with Randy for 2 months. I mean, really.